Okay, hi. I'm Laurie VanBalen, and this is
I'm Tom.
And I want to thank Teresa for being here. And I want to check, Debbie, can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well.
Okay,
Yeah, we
great.
can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm very pleased to be invited, especially now during such difficult times in our country, to discuss something that has to do with bringing people together and helping people live together successfully in their communities, welcoming all people. When I started the Columbus Crossing Borders Project, it was 2016, I came up with the idea that I wanted to use my art to draw attention to the fact that the immigrant and refugee population, at least in this area, deserve to be welcome. They deserve to be made to feel part of our communities. And I was really appalled at how much anti-immigration sentiment was going on. I felt like it would be a good idea to use my art and somehow bring together a project where I could bring together many artists and we could cross into each other's paintings and create what might be like a metaphor of to speak about what it meant to share your space. And so originally the idea was crossing my mind that I might try to reach the Ohio Arts Council and see about putting it on display at the airport, which has a very nice art gallery. And I couldn't get hold of the people who were in charge of that. So I thought, well, I'll just do this myself and we'll let the exhibit hang out for maybe a few months, see if we can find a couple galleries, and then we'll make our statement. So I started inviting in artists and asked them if they would be willing to somehow represent in their painting the refugee crisis in some capacity. It didn't matter if they wanted to reflect on somebody they knew or if they wanted to address an issue that was taking place in the news, but that somehow they had to reflect the refugee crisis and then cross into the painting next to theirs. And I started inviting in people. And before I knew it, I had 34 artists. I never intended to make it that big. And at the time that it was developing, I was contacted by a board member from Community Refugee and Immigration Services who had heard what I was doing and wanted to know how we could extend this outreach, how we could make it bigger to reach more people. And I don't know what prompted me to say this, but I said, let's make a movie. I don't know the first thing about making a movie.
Good afternoon, WOSU. This is George.
And I
Hello?
Oh, George, can you mute yourself? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
okay. So okay, I'm sorry. So anyway, so I decided that I would help make this movie, however it was going to get made. He thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a great idea. We didn't know who was going to do the movie. Well, it was serendipitous because somebody did come forward who had heard what we were doing, Doug Swift, who at the time was teaching for Ohio State and is now with Denison. And he's a wonderful filmmaker. He addresses themes that reflect social justice. And he came forward and said, I'd like to make this film. And I said, well, I don't know who's going to be able to pay you. I mean, we're just doing this because we want to make a statement. He goes, no. So it all came together. We went after some grants. We didn't get a lot of money, but we got startup from the Greater Columbus Arts Council. And things just fell into place the way they tend to fall into place when you're following a passion that feels right. And so originally,
Sounds good.
Originally, I imagined a brief exhibit with just a handful of artists, but now we had 34. And I invited them to my house and we discussed how we were going to do this. Now, trying to get together 34 artists is like herding cats. I gave them 3 different meeting times with the hopes that they could show up to at least one of them, but everybody showed up. And I gave them a deadline of 4 months, and everybody produced art. I couldn't believe this was just falling into place. Now, this was on the heels of that we had the election in November 2016, which is when I decided to do the exhibit. And by 2017, the spring, we had everything together, and we had our first exhibit was at the Columbus Cultural Arts Center. Now, I have some pictures, and as I'm speaking, I'm going to share my pictures. And I want to make sure that these come out okay. Now, Debbie, you can tell me if you can see these.
Yes.
Okay, and is this, there's nothing else on the screen, right? Everything's good?
It's
Okay, great.
a little small, but I think we can see it.
Okay, it'll get bigger,
there
I
you
believe.
go. Okay.
Okay, so how's that picture?
Perfect.
Okay, so I put together some pictures, and I'm going to try to illustrate what this looked like. So the artists who were involved, like I said, I presented them with a challenge. They had to create a painting that not only reflected something that had to do with the refugee crisis, because we were trying to affect hearts and minds, but also it had to cross into the painting next to theirs. Now, when they came to my meeting, some of these artists didn't know each other. And so if they were sitting together, I'd say, okay, you're going to be next to that person. And they'd say, well, how are we going to do this? And I told them, you need to figure it out. Artists tend to be very territorial, and you have to welcome the other artists into your space. Maybe one artist will paint onto another's painting. Maybe you'll have a similar theme. You need to figure this out. Now, this artist worked, this is Linda Regula, and she worked with Deborah Joyce Dawson. And you can see where the stones on the painting of the left blend into the stone and the rubble of the painting on the right. That's how they chose to connect. Now, I'm going to show you some other paintings here. Some of these artists reflected more poetic themes, like this artist, Kathy Anderson, wanted to reflect the theme of justice and how the Statue of Liberty welcomes people from all over. Now you can see on this next painting how her painting connected to the painting next to hers.
Nice.
These artists met together at a coffee shop. They did not all know each other, and they figured out how they were going to connect their paintings. Now, I do want to add that many of the artists that we have in this exhibit are very well known. We have some real rock stars, which only helped our cause because we were trying to sell the idea of love and peace and justice for all people and working together. And so it was nice to pull in their followers and their fans. This is a painting by Michael Gwinan, who is a very well-known artist in Central Ohio. He had a painting in I believe it was the Columbus Museum of Art has a biannual event where they raise money for AIDS and HIV awareness, and his painting auctioned off, the one he did for that event, like $17,000 he raised.
Painting of the Ohio Theater.
Yeah, so we pulled in a lot of artists who were very well known and prolific. And we have as many styles in this exhibit as we do different nations and cultures that come into our country. You can see here Deborah Joyce Dawson came to my studio and actually blended her painting in with the two beside it. We have other artists, like this is Mark Gingrich, who he does a lot of paintings, kind of impressionistic style. And then you have somebody like Dahlia Copus, who is more abstract. So there were a lot of representations of different kinds of styles. This is a science fiction artist who's a good friend of mine, Dale Zeminski, who used the metaphor of alien, alien people coming in from other countries. And he used some biblical references as well. So there's a lot of critical thinking going on with these works. Again, the way they crossed. This, if you see the documentary film, David Deniston, who did a painting on the right of Soto, who is a person who works for CRIS. He used the theme of Morse code when he met with Soto. She talked about freedom and having the power to live freely now that she left her country, Somalia. And he used Morse code to reflect the things she said because it's a universal language. And you can see how the painting on the left blends into his with that theme of fence wall, keeping people out, and the way he blended it. And this is a picture of Soto with her painting. She's a very beautiful woman. And this is the actual painting up close. This was my painting. I reflected what it would be like to be a child in the refugee camp. And my statement indicates that all she has is a doll. And I will address that a little later. I've had conversations with children who seem to be very moved by this piece. And they like the idea that I dressed her in the colors of the American flag. So there's a lot to think about when you're looking at these paintings. This painting was done by a good friend of mine, actually, who put Tom and I right in the middle of it. And it surrounded it, the people around the table. She was next to the science fiction artist, so you can see her alien right there. That's how she incorporated the cross of paintings. But she had people around the table who have all done what they could, use their voices or their skills to try to help people who are fleeing. Margaret Sendler, who worked with the children during the Holocaust. There's some leaders around here. And in the center, of course, she based this on Norman Rockwell's painting of the Thanksgiving gathering. But being that Tom and I don't eat meat, she gave me a loaf of bread. So it was a very playful way of making a point. And again, since this is seen by people of all ages, I think children in particular, they love the humor. And this was a painting that, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go past that so quickly. That was, of course, it's abstract, but it was created by using dyes and spices that come from various parts of the world where refugees flee from. So I thought it was just a beautiful way. She used them to create this organic paint. Here's a painting by one of the Lost Boys of Sudan, who is a friend of ours, and he painted his journey. And he crossed his painting over. You can see this design on the top. The woman who helped him when he moved here from Sudan, he moved to Nashville, and his mentor, he used that design to cross into her painting. Another painting, April Tsunami, who is a local artist, who many of her works reflect women from Somalia, and she put mirrors. These are actual broken pieces of mirror around this refugee woman to reflect our sameness. And I thought that was very beautiful. So I don't have all the paintings shown here, but I just wanted to show you some of them. The Hani Hara, who crossed into this painting. by Donnelly, a woman from Mexico that she knew, and she painted this, and you can see where his painting crosses into her sleeve. Gay Riesland, this has become kind of an iconic painting for Columbus Crossing Borders. We have some wonderful images from some of our shows of children standing in front of this painting, creating heart signs with their hands. So anyway, you have this like cooperative community of artists who got together and solved these problems of working into each other's pieces. So during the time that this was being created, this art exhibit, which took several months, Doug Swift, who is the director, was documenting. He was documenting the actual creation of the exhibit, going and visiting not every artist, but some of the artists, and talking to them about what inspired them and about how they worked out these problems of working together. And the documentary film actually reflects this. You can see it. The film is fairly short. It's less than an hour, and it like I said, it documents the exhibit, but it also is created against the backdrop of refugees who live in Columbus now. They're no longer refugees. They have homes here in Columbus, and it tells the stories of some local people who fled under horrific conditions. And he did it in such a way that it can be presented to schools, and it has been seen by 8 years later, it's still being seen all over the country. He created it in a way that it tells the truth. It's a very powerful documentary, but it is respectful of young people, because it can be very traumatic hearing people's stories. He did a beautiful job. This is him visiting with Hani Hara. Now the film, and this is Paul Hamilton, the film premiered shortly after our opening exhibit at the Cultural Arts Center on May 21st, 2017. There were 400 people present at that opening, and he actually filmed right up to the opening. So you see the opening exhibit in the film, these are images from the opening exhibit. These are some of the artists I'm standing with. The artists have been very supportive. They come to some of our events and speak to some of the children. They speak to citizens from all over the place. I've even had artists travel to Nashville when we were there visiting. So this is the opening. So many people. It was so much support. It kind of blew us away how many people showed up to that. And then the film opened, it saw its premiere at the Drexel Theater a few months later, and it sold out twice. It was fabulous. This is Doug Swift on the right, and then Tom, my husband, on the left, and in the middle, the man with the beard. He did a lot of the music for the film, a good friend of ours. All these people offered their time and their energy and their talent. This was not a money-making venture, but it was very, very powerful. So we started traveling all over the place. We started getting calls. I thought this was just going to last for a couple of months, but we began receiving invitations to galleries, schools, community centers, places of worship, and we met with all demographics. We wanted to reach across those social and political divides. I did not feel intimidated. I've been an artist for God knows how long. I 45 years, and teaching through various venues out of my home studio, Parks and Rec departments, school artists and school visits. So visiting with people, especially students in schools, is something that I felt very comfortable with. Just now we were using our art for not only encouraging understanding about what it means to be forced to leave your home, but using art in a non-threatening way to encourage people to use their talents, use their voices. A lot of people, especially right now, feel scared. You know, we're by design, we're made to feel silenced. And I think art, which is probably why it's one of the first things to go when you do have any kind of overthrow or coup. They don't want people to do that, but it just spread like wildfire. And we had students, of course, back in 2017, we were not as challenged as were now. I remember thinking we were up against some very hard times. I had no idea that we'd be facing what we're doing now. But that we began to work on projects that would promote solidarity and working together to solve problems peacefully. And students would come up with the most brilliant ideas, and oftentimes we would work within the platform, or I should say curriculum, of what the schools were already doing. This is such a broad-based subject, we could tie it into what they were already doing. So we had some wonderful conversations. I remember this particular group of students, I think these were third or fourth graders. They looked like they were the fourth graders. And one of the sensitive ways that I would present talking about the artwork was talking about the fact that maybe you're sitting in your house with your family and you're having dinner, and all of a sudden one of your parents comes in and says, okay, we need to leave right now. We're going to walk to the next state. And we have to be very quiet, and you can only take one thing with you.
And we're not coming back.
And we're not coming back, right? And I would say to the students, so what are you going to take with you? And I was expecting to hear things like my iPad or my phone or my video games. No. One child says, I would bring wood so that we could stay warm at night. And somebody else say, okay, I'll bring the matches. And somebody else would say, I'll bring a blanket, and I'll bring a basket of food. They were thinking in terms of our collective needs. And it was so heartwarming. You know, again, critical thinking, it blew me away. We had just some fabulous conversations and some very creative projects that came out of this. I believe this was when we were in Nashville, some of the students who we visited with there. We've been in schools, so many schools, all over the place. We started to be invited to cities that were far away. My husband had to quit his full-time job to travel the exhibit with me, which I mean, I guess you could say it was kind of an early retirement, but it wasn't really much of a retirement. We would do these tours and talk with the students, and they loved this, because it was like, Where's Waldo? Trying to figure out how these paintings crossed into each other. We spent some time at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. We were 6 weeks there. Just a wonderful, wonderful place. We were at Lakeland Community College twice in Cleveland, or outside of Cleveland. This is Tom hanging the exhibit. It would, we had to create ways to show the exhibit in places where we couldn't hang the pieces on the wall. Because some of the galleries like this is at Otterbein, you could hang it on the wall because they're designed for that. And you can see where this isn't hung like a regular exhibit. We try to hang it so that you could see the point of entrance of each painting. You line them up next to each other so you could find where they connect. But some places you can't do that. Some places we were forced to set it on tables. And here, this was, I believe, in Dublin. They had panels in their media center so we could hang it there, and the students came in. Students would be bussed in from other schools. Sometimes we would have events like when we were in Westerville, where the entire community got together. There were 30 different businesses that came together to bring us there, to the point at Otterbein. Every school in the Westerville City School District was bused to see this exhibit, which corresponded with their culture day. The police chief in Westerville helped put this together. He wanted to educate the community about not supporting racism. We heard from refugees who were in camps in other countries that said that they heard Westerville was a wonderful place to come to. There are communities that have worked hard to to welcome. This was a student at the Westerville schools. Again, I talked about how they do a lot of projects surrounding our exhibit. And I love this, talking about being silenced. The statements that people would write about seeing this exhibit, how it opened their eyes, how they were inspired, because we weren't just talking about compassion and support. We were talking about how each one of us can use whatever talent we have to make a difference. And because of that, we started to align and partner with many marginalized groups. It wasn't just, we work very closely with CRIS, of course, but Community Refugee and Immigration Services. But we've worked with so many, especially in other communities, we've worked with so many different groups who are marginalized. So it became more of a theme of human rights. We tried to make our events reflect the nature of what it was. You go to a lot of art openings where you have the obligatory wine and cheese and, it's all very nice. Well, we wanted our openings to celebrate what other countries, migrant people who have come here, businesses they have created, restaurants, cultures they've brought. We try to celebrate that. We, at many of our first opening at the Columbus Cultural Arts Center, we invited in, we had, a Maza, which is wonderful. They're a Lebanese-owned restaurant in Grandview, but their food reflects, the falafels and the lentil soup and the there was just so many different foods that we could invite. Some of our events we would have Pakistani, Indian, Himalayan cultures. We always just, and the music, we would always try to bring in the celebration of the culture. There's a band that Tom found from the Akron area, who these people met in a camp when they were in the refugee camp and started making music together. And we brought them to an event we had in Zanesville. So again, we tried to celebrate those cultures. The critical thinking was just phenomenal. A lot of the venues we went to, I remember, I don't know if this was from Zanesville or when we were at the Dublin Arts Council, but they would create these projects and these activities for the people who would come and see the show. And everywhere we went, it was just such a gift to learn.
That's a drug fusion band there in the background.
That's the band.
The Zanesville Art Museum.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, we were there for an opening, and they played Nepali folk music, wood flute, guitar, hand drums. It was really perfect. It was wonderful. You can see a little bit of the spread there.
Yeah.
At that event.
Yeah, and this was when we were in Cleveland. A group of women who were refugees at one time came in and they brought food. They even brought a cake that was just beautiful, that had one of our paintings on it, said diversity matters, which makes me tear up now saying that now.
Shaker Heights.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's Nashville.
No, I think this is Cleveland. Oh, and these are some of the projects. They created, you can see the squares here. They created this so that the attendees could draw pictures of their experience and cross into each other's pictures. We did the same thing when we were in Cleveland, I believe, at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. So you can see just a wide variety of presentations. We did a lot of panel discussions. This was in Westerville. Tara Soto, Juma, and Angie Plummer, who is the Director of Community, Refugee, and Immigration Services. This was at Columbus Academy. This was a beautiful quilt that kindergartners made in Westerville, and the theme was home. I worked with the students. I went into their classroom and worked with them, and they each had to draw. I'm sorry. They each had to draw something that reflected their idea of what home was, and then they had to connect with the others next to them and create this quilt that reflected home. This was a group of kids that I spoke to in Westerville. I love this. A student wrote this: "We sow kindness and be nice." Just beautiful. Some of the artwork that the kids would create was just, it was, I still have all the letters. I'm like a proud mother. I have all the letters and cards and everything where they thanked us. So within a few years, we were doing all these visits. This is artist Michael Gwinan, Gray Riesland. We would go in and talk with students. They would do their presentations. This is Michael explaining the art to the student. It's really exciting to see how this documentary film, when the kids see it before they see the exhibit, and they come in and they're so excited, not just kids, adults, because it's no longer this sort of conceptual thing. They totally get what we're doing. And when they come in and see how these paintings connect, this particular artist here painted a character that is in the painting to the right. You can see her on the left side of that painting to the right. It's always exciting for the kids to find out how these paintings connect. This is Gay standing in front of her painting. And of course, Michael explaining his painting. And the actual, when you see the documentary film, this woman holding this child is in the film talking about her story. She was a friend she's a friend of Michael's. This is at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. This is a panel presentation that was done in Cincinnati, TV station. They invited in
Immigration
yeah,
attorneys.
yeah, immigration attorneys, all sorts of people that we sat with. This was a presentation in Cleveland. We were just all over the place. And part of the excitement of this for me was just to see people coming together and making a difference. So it got me thinking. After a few years of doing this, I thought, okay, to me, I feel like when you can connect and focus on your shared humanity by knowing somebody as a person and not as a name, or an identity or a sect, rather than say, well, do you know any people, Muslim refugees or Bhutanese? No, let's know them as people. So I thought, how can we do that in communities? How can we really make this happen? So in my community, I live in Licking County. There now it's starting to become more diverse, but there was still a fair amount of lack of exposure to people of other cultures. It's changed in the last couple of years tremendously. But at that time, I'd say 6, 7 years ago, I felt like some people had never met anybody who wore a hijab, or they didn't know anybody who had to flee their country. So I contacted Jeremy Holland, who works for CRIS, and he's an artist who works with a lot of students throughout the Central Ohio area and does a lot of programs where they partner and bring that sort of exposure to the communities through artwork. And I said, can we bring in some people, some like new Americans and students, young people, to work on a mural in my community that reflects that solidarity, our togetherness. So again, it started taking off. This is in my studio in my home. I started inviting, I teach a lot of students. I started inviting many of my students. Jeremy brought some of his. I called some other refugee resettlement agencies like Us Together and a few other people I knew that worked with in New Americans. Some of the students that came to the house barely spoke English. The Columbus Dispatch covered this. We started getting some exposure, and the mural we created, it was pretty incredible. Here's Jeremy working with a student. It took us, I believe, maybe a month?
Yeah, few weeks.
Yeah. And adults and students alike. Every item in the mural had to reflect a country where people flee from. So, for example, this student, he was from the Congo, and I got to speak to him because I know a little bit of French. I was really excited. Finally, you never get to use French, but I got to talk to him. So you can see, this is on the left, you can see a bird that I don't remember where he's native to. These trees are African. It was a very fun mural, but everything had a purpose. Himalayan poppies reflect, I think that's the flower of Bhutan. Turtles that come, and there were no people in the mural, just nature, animals, and landscapes and
National flowers, national
yeah,
animals of all these different
foliage. And as these people worked together, they got to know each other. This is the development of the mural. And so I said there were no people in it. There was one person. I cut this out of wood, reflected it was androgynous, a boy or a girl, who is releasing a vase with the rainbow coming out of it, feeding into the mural. And we hung it at a park not far from our house on the 4th of July. It was a very, very, very hot day. I remember we were just burning up, and it's still there now. And it's a beautiful mural, just reflecting our shared humanity. Then we did another event. There's a church down the street from my house, the very supportive church. They walk the walk. They work with the homeless. They work with people who are going through rehabilitation. They work with the LGBTQ community, and they work with refugees. And I partnered with them, and we put together another mural project where we invited people in, and what they had to do was create these squares, part of a giant quilt that connected with each other. And it was reflecting, what does togetherness mean to you? What does love mean to you? And it was, again, we worked with a cross section of people who may not otherwise have ever met each other. And this is the gathering. And shortly after that, that's the finished quilt. Shortly after that, we did another event with them where we did, this is Tom. This was much more complicated, but we created flying doves to represent peace being released from a giant hand. And I won't go into the whole process, but we actually had to get some industrial help to do this. And then once we had them cut out, again, we pulled people together to paint these. These are, they're sitting in my living room before they were going to be installed, and they were installed on a building here in my community. You can see the finished product right here. You can see the hand releasing the doves. And again, it was an effort to to bring people together and work on a project and get to know one another. We continued our Columbus Crossing Borders advocacy. It's going 8 years now, and in the process, I'm adding on just a couple little things to show you. I was inspired and decided that I do a lot of portraiture, I do a lot of illustration, but I was inspired to use my art to, I was trying to figure out how can I draw more attention to the refugee crisis and making this relatable, that these are human beings, which God knows we need that now more than ever. And I thought, I'm going to make life-size art, because if you see it in life-size, maybe it'll be more relatable. So I started with paper mache. The first thing I did, Mother Teresa did a lot of work with migrant people, and I've always admired her strength and her ability to sell what she was doing. It's a wonderful project or product to sell love, but also her courage, just story upon story of where she defied people that were in battle against each other and just walk across enemy lines to take food to people who were starving. And I wanted to reflect that. I was asked to be in a show. The James Cancer Hospital was putting on a show and asked me to be in it. And they were taking radiation masks and turning them into, they were asking artists to turn them into something that reflected courage. People did a lot of abstract things. I used my radiation masks to turn it into Mother Teresa. Her head is built around, it's built around a radiation mask. You can see the top of it there. And so I turned it into, and instead of a rosary, she's holding, this is actually a chain with a heart and praying. Shortly after that, my sister became very ill and eventually passed away from cancer that had gone to her brain, and I used her radiation mask as a base for, this is a refugee mother with her child, and paper mache. I ended up donating this, but this is the finished piece. And again, it was life size. And then I became a little bit more ambitious. And I was so appalled by the family separation at the southern border that I did a mother having her child taken away from her by a border guard. And when I originally did this, I did it with the intention of being able to, the border guard could either bring them together or separate them. So I set it up, but typically when it's displayed as them being separated. This is Tom building the base that the mother was actually formed around. This is the mother as I was building it, the child. And we have these, they've been on display a number of places. Here's the border guard.
Notice the mess.
Yeah, it's a horrible mess. But these figures are actually upstairs in one of our bedrooms. And every time I go up there, I like jump because I forget they're up there. I think there's people in the bedroom. But anyway, this is them on display, various places. Ultimately, what we did, and I want to thank Teresa for being here today from CRIS, because I'm just about done with this presentation. And sometimes when we have questions about policy. I'm not qualified to answer questions about policy, so I always try to have a CRIS person on hand when we do events or these speaking engagements. But because we work so closely with CRIS, we actually sold the original paintings from the Columbus Crossing Borders project, and we had an auction set up for
April of 2020.
2020, April 2020, and we were going to sell all the original artwork and donate that to CRIS, because they are a nonprofit, and certainly their funding has been played with by this administration. And when they were, last time they were in power, they cut their funding. But anyway, we had that auction planned, and then we had to cancel because of COVID. And then we planned it again and we had to cancel. So eventually we had an auction. We sold not all the paintings. There's some left if anybody's interested. And again, the money will go to CRIS, but we sold many of the paintings. Now, with that said, I want to point out that we have copies of the paintings. So we still show the exhibit. You can't tell the difference between the copies and the original paintings. They're exact. And a good deal of money was spent paying for them to be very well done. I can't even tell the difference between my painting and the original, the copy and the original. So we did have this event last year. You can see the paintings here, and we were able to raise some money for CRIS. So I've talked for quite a while. I just want to say that for me personally, to be able to do this has been a gift. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't able to do this. It's going to be challenging now. We have some events where we're supposed to go into schools. Of course, the schools are being messed with on a lot of levels, not just DEI. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen now. I still think it's important to use our art and to use our voices. Last year, we were hired by Reynoldsburg schools. We weren't even doing art. We were just working with the students on how to use their voices to advocate for themselves. Everybody from the Gay Straight Alliance to Black Lives Matter. Because I think this is a time that we need to be there for one another, which of course, I'm preaching to the choir. And I'm not going to do that. But I think whether it's art, whether it's, whatever your skill is, dancing, cooking, whatever, I think it's important that we keep going. I'm not sure what this is going to look like in the schools.
I'm gonna go off a share.
But yeah, thank you. I'm going to go off a share now. But for us, this has been a blessing. It's given us something to do to keep from just sitting around being depressed all the time. And I've met some wonderful people, and there's strength in numbers. So thank you for letting me talk.
Oh, thank you, Laurie. I really appreciate it. That was quite a show. If anybody has questions before we move on to Teresa, if you could go ahead and raise your hand, and hopefully I'll be able to see you. We've got 2 pages, so I'm going to scan and see if anybody has a question. Hang on a minute. I've muted everybody, so you'll have to unmute if you have a question. Okay. Unless I'm missing somebody, we don't have any questions at the moment, but we may have them as we go along.
Okay.
Presentation. Thank you so much. Let's move on to Teresa. I know, just as a little bit of a background, this Thursday Action Group that you're meeting with right now has done a little bit of work with refugees in a couple of different ways, and our larger Indivisible group has as well. The larger Indivisible Central Ohio group has helped to sponsor a family from Congo, but our smaller, this little group, had worked to produce some letters that would go to school districts and to city councils to ask them to create policies that would help protect immigrants from the coming deportation efforts. And some of them have been very receptive. Some of the school boards and city councils have been. We heard from Joseph Moss, an attorney who helped us craft those letters and explain a little bit about the process and how different municipalities can help protect our neighbors. So that's about where we are at the moment. But we also, the Indivisible Central Ohio group has a weekly newsletter that goes out that most of you receive. And there's an attachment to that. And it's on immigration, protecting immigrants. So there may be some things that we want to add to that, brainstorm ideas for things that we can do to kind of build on what Laurie and Tom have done. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of talent around here, so there might be some good ideas coming out of that. So please feel free to share them, and then I can put them in that document and we can see if there's something else we can do. Any comments before I go to Teresa? Okay, Debbie.
I was just wondering, since she said she did make copies of the artwork, is there anywhere that we could go to see it displayed today?
Yes. So to see the display today, two things you could do. You could either go to our virtual tour on our website. During COVID, when of course we could not go out into the public, spent 6 months putting together a virtual tour. And so it's
Debbie shared that. That is really great.
Yeah.
The virtual tour is really good. I just wondered if we could see it in person. I meant, sorry.
At the moment, it's stored in my home. No, really, and unless we haven't, you could see the film, and you can see it, but unless we have an event,
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's not on tour right now.
Would love it to be on tour. So if you know anybody who would like to host us, certainly send them our way.
Yeah.
We still have 3 more school visits to do before the end of the year.
Okay.
But it seems like municipalities and that like have been running a little scared. We had a couple things that we thought were going to be happening, and they kind of backed off. There's lots of people that are scared right now. And to that, I just thanks everybody for being involved and doing what you're doing. You know, we're not necessarily just preaching about refugees, but you know, we're sensitive to all the things that are going on right now. But I would ask everybody to take care of you. You know, I think one of the things that's hard in these times is to weather the storm. You know, we cry if we need to cry, but we need to be okay and to be powerful. So find something that you're passionate about, whether it's, you know, doing postcards or going out and marching or making telephone calls, or, you know, find something you're passionate about and find a way to make a difference, and take care of yourself and be strong, because this is designed to destroy us. You know, this administration has designed everything to destroy us.
When I was
and to
putting
break our
together,
spirit.
I was putting together this.
I refuse to lose my peace. I love my kids. I hold my grandkids. You know, I live my life. There's a time to get out the sword and fight, but there's a time for self-care. And I think that's really critical for everyone right now.
When we were putting together this presentation, it was hard not to cry because we were seeing all the progress we were making. And it's weird because you asked it where you could see the exhibit. You know, a year ago, I could have told you, oh, this is coming up, that's coming up. We were at the State House a year ago. We were going to be at Upper Arlington in their municipal building. We were presented for 400 teachers in Columbus. I mean, now, who knows? So, yeah.
That's discouraging. I was going to ask about, you said that you do have some paintings still for sale, including copies. And I wonder if there's a way that you could share sort of a list or something that we know what might be available if anybody would be interested in purchasing something like that.
Certainly we can put something like that together. the auction was based on a $500 donation directly to Community Refugee Immigration Services. And a few of the paintings got bid up a bit, but the cost on these paintings were $500.
Which is amazing.
which is amazing. Some of these people get, you know, $25,000 a canvas and are represented by Hammond Harkin and, you know, all top galleries. Some of these people are nationally known. But we can put together a little thing that we can send to you, Debbie, that you could put in maybe a link in a newsletter.
I work
But-
with somebody at CRIS who already has something more or less put together, and I'll talk to her and then send you the link so you
Okay.
can share
You
it.
have it with Laura?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank
Anne's got her hand up.
There's a really good one left. I mean, they're all good, but what I mean is the one I want is left. And I keep trying to come up with the big red one. I just
Which
love it.
one is it? Oh,
The
is
big
it
Dahlias?
red one,
Dahlias?
yeah.
Yeah.
I just love it. And I see it and I'm like, okay, I gotta ask for that so nobody buy that one. I'm gonna ask for it for Christmas or something.
Anne's got her hand up.
Yeah, in Westerville, there's a project called the Big Bus, and it goes into immigrant neighborhoods, 3 different neighborhoods in and around Westerville, to do tutoring after school for students whose families don't speak English. And they find that, the students are fairly proficient in English, but they lack the support of families who can't read the English instructions and can't help them because of a language barrier. Also, they have a preschool program and are starting to help set up things for mothers, so mothers can practice their English, and especially functional English, like what do you need in order to go on an interview to be a housekeeper somewhere. So I'm looking forward to becoming involved in that. And if any of you here would like to become involved, the Westerville Progressive Alliance is trying to put together a group where we can be trained and then we can sign up to work in on the buses.
We love Westerville, and they are walking the walk from way back when we started. We had probably one of our most successful moving events at the Point. We came back to Miller Gallery right before the auction to kind of do some get some interest going on. But like the Hands Across Westerville, I mean, they do so many welcoming, beautiful things there. It's just a tremendous community. So
Thank you.
I'm behind them 1,000% with everything they do there.
Thank you. And I'd be willing to be a go-between if you've got, if you are interested in getting involved in this, then I'll just pass it off to Anne and she can connect you with Westerville Progressive Alliance. We do a lot of things, as some of you know, some of the newer ones maybe don't know, but we do a lot of things on a coalition basis. Indivisible Central Ohio works with a bunch of different groups on projects. So there's no, just sort of like Columbus Crossing Borders, we cross groups when there are projects that we can collaborate on. So, we have people that are involved in several different groups and can hook us up with other groups that are doing some things that we'd like to be involved with. And as I said, we've already been involved some with CRIS. I don't want to leave Teresa hanging. So how about if we go to Teresa next?
Okay. Well, I don't really have a presentation, but I'm very, I want to answer questions too, if you have general questions about what's going on, but I'm going to give you kind of the current state of play. There can be a lot of rumors or whatever, but just to review, on January 20th, and CRIS, well, I should start with this. If you don't know much about CRIS, we are a refugee resettlement agency, and we also house 8 to 12 other services throughout our organization with over 100 staff members, from our youth mentoring program to senior services to our victims of crime, 2 jobs programs, several programs to help kids and family through the county. So we have a lot of programs going on. So when you hear things like CRIS is closed, that would only be our resettlement program. The other programs, as of today, are still funded. They are still depending on your status here and that you're still able to join, the staff is still here. So that I think is just kind of in case you're hearing CRIS is closed, it's really only resettlement. And the reason why resettlement has closed, even though we were contracted to take 800 refugees this year, that's from October 1st of 2024 till September 30th of 2025. On January 20th, the refugee program was paused. And so it was just a dead stop. So even though we had refugees coming to us that had worked through all their processes on airplanes and things like that, those flights were canceled. That was all stopped. A few refugees have been able to find their own way here as they had the proper travel documents, and can continue to do so, especially if they're Afghan special immigrant visa holders, until there is a travel ban, which every Friday it's rumored to happen, and it didn't happen last Friday, and we hope it doesn't happen tomorrow. But once that travel ban hits, I think that'll pretty much take care of about everybody who wanted to come and maybe could find a way. But when the refugee program was paused, that means each refugee comes with a grant, $1,650. It comes with money for CRIS to do 16 essential services. As of January 1st, that all was just stopped. We have received payment very recently for refugees who came in January. I just found that out walking in today. Until today, I was like, and we weren't paid for 47 refugees. But I need to talk to Angie and get it's a brand new update, but I do believe we were paid. So what happened on February 26th wasn't just a pause of the refugee program, but an actual breaking of the contracts with the 10 refugee agencies that smaller local refugee agencies like us contract with. So Church World Services, who we contract with, those contracts were in effect broken, just done. And that's what really triggered a lot of places closing and us knowing that we, just must close our resettlement department. There's no one to resettle, and we don't have the funds to pay staff. Most of our staff are currently sheltered in other programs, myself included. I'm paid through another grant that's also in danger. But some staff we did have to lay off, as we don't expect there to see refugees for quite some time. That being said, all of this is in the all of it's in the courts now, and it's whiplash every day. Yesterday was big whiplash. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals allowed Trump's emergency bid to stay, to just stop the refugee program. The day before, there was another in Pasito versus Trump that said that it was illegal for him to do that. Then it was granted. But then the Ninth Circuit panel said the U.S. government still needed to settle the 100,000 refugees 20,000 refugees that were considered ready for departure. That's all in the courts. Every day it's different. Every day it's whiplash. I don't know how else to say it. It's really hard. There's also a new ruling which we find very disturbing, and that it's not a ruling. It seems, according to CBS News yesterday, or I think it was Tuesday, that the Trump administration has paused the processing of green card applications for refugees and asylees. And those all refugees and all people who are granted asylum, not asylum seekers, but people who have actually been through the processes in 11 and a half months, are required to apply for a permanent resident status. And so that's very disturbing news. Our lawyers are busy at work with just helping people change status. You may have heard that temporary protected status next week, I guess, is going to go away for Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela. What is it? CHIV. Who am I missing? Cuba, Haiti. There's one more country in there that I'm forgetting. And the other, it changes all the time. But those people if they came at a certain time, those people had either parole status or what we call
Was it Nicaragua?
Nicaragua. Yeah, thank you. CHIN. I forget. So they're here, could not be deported for 12 to 18 months, and that rolls over every year. If there's a threat that's deemed significant, well, they work on other pathways, such as the asylum pathway or other pathways to be here. So they're here legally. They were supposed to be here legally until late fall. And now it looks like that status is going to be revoked next week. So that's extremely panicking. It's, you know, I have many friends on staff here that are under that exact status. So
Half a million people, right?
yeah. Now, some of those Ukrainians are also may have theirs taken away later. They can apply for other statuses. They can start that process, and they can find other statuses to at least have a pending asylum claim would at least give them some protection. But it is going from the government knows who you are, you've registered, you work, you have a work permit, they know your phone number, you know, you're here under a status that you have requested and were granted. And to have that go away, we don't quite know what it's going to look like. And so so that's something for our lawyers to work on, and we'll be making statements and try to have the most important information out there. In the meantime, we have less staff, and a lot of folks still need help here in Columbus and still need just the folks who came in January, we're still helping them out. The city of Columbus came to us and the other resettlement agencies in Columbus and offered us ERA funds for the clients that came in 2025. So we were able to receive some rent, which is beyond helpful, because remember, these clients initially and maybe not did not receive all their funds. CRIS has had to prematurely close our program, so we haven't been able to help them as much. But we know if they have a lease that they've got a few months rent, thanks to our kind of robust ERA program here in Columbus. And the city's been super helpful. Couldn't be more grateful, and it really helps our clients out. So there's just a quick update. I think probably the most important update right now, it's our 30th year at CRIS, and we are celebrating it. And well before the things that happened in November happened, we had a planned fundraising event this year called Enduring Welcome to help us keep programs open and to have the money to start new programs and to continue for another 30 years. So you can see that on our website as well. You can become a fundraiser or just fundraise directly to that. And so there's a few weeks left in that. There is also going to be a fundraising dinner soon that I think went out to Indivisible. So that was my quick update. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Mike and Janie Haleko have their hands up.
Okay.
Hi. First, Laurie and Tom, thank you for your outstanding work. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
And then Teresa, I want to make a real good comment about CRIS. An experience that we've had in the last 3 or 4 years is I am a tutor for English as a second language, and one of my students was from Guinea, and she was a green card holder. And during the pandemic, we couldn't meet, but we did Zoom lessons together. I worked with her, and she became a citizen through the Zoom call method. And the reason I want to mention CRIS, because she worked for Amazon. She became pregnant and couldn't keep up at Amazon. She got fired. This is before she became a citizen. Okay, she got fired. She lost her job. She had no income. I called CRIS right away. And within a week, CRIS found this young woman a job.
Oh, that's great.
And I mean, it was like 3 or 4 days, and she was reemployed. And so again, your service, what you're doing is fantastic.
Thanks.
And greatly appreciated. And under these circumstances that we both, Laurie and Tom, and you have mentioned, Teresa, when she became a citizen, we thought, oh, well, good, she's protected now. But under these new circumstances, who is protected?
Right.
If you don't look right, we're all aware of what's going on. But anyway, thank you so much to all of
Thank you.
both of you for doing the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, Janine Ostrander has something.
Yeah, I have a question. You said that there are a lot of things they need. Can you give me an idea or give us all an idea of what they need and if we have things that we can donate, where we should
Okay.
take
Oh,
them to?
yeah. Actually, right now we are not accepting donations. We kind of have to close down the donation spaces we pay for because we can't afford it. And also because we're kind of retooling all of as far as material possessions, all of the clients who came this year and even ones who come in, we were able to, thanks to the donations in the community, get everybody all their things. If you have a washer and dryer, you can still call us, like an old one, like if you're getting a new set. I will still, since that's such a huge need and that was one we couldn't meet. We can usually find in the community washer and dryers for all our new clients. So contact me directly about that. I'll probably do that in my spare time on the weekend or something. So that would be one thing we do need. We will be doing donations again in the very near future. We're going to clean out everything and we're going to find out what the needs in the community are. So it may be the needs in the community, we have a feeling are going to be those little things that help get food stamps through until you make a little more money or another family member is working. So it may be things like toilet paper, paper towels, like stuff like that. And it may be that we'll target some things like shoes for seniors or suits for job programs or things like that. But we're going to have to be more targeted now. It used to be that we had a list of 50 things we always needed. We needed them every week, week in and week out, pillows, frying pans. We are only going to need those on a case-by-case basis now. And some people are still coming to the United States because they have the right visa and they're not our clients, but we will help them in any way we can. And then I could connect. So when I say what they need help understanding their phone bills. They need help understanding the processes here for banking, getting their driver's license, understanding how to make referrals for maintenance in their homes. There are a lot of things that our case managers really were around to do for clients for almost 6 months that they're not around to do now. And so we're very quickly trying to retool with some volunteer networks and maybe open up some hours here so that we're offering that so that support didn't just disappear, because it's a huge amount of just personal support that anyone who came through CRIS got. And now there's just not staff to do that. So we're Flannery and we our volunteer coordinators are doing some retooling and hopefully matching some community members with clients who arrived in the last 6 or 8 months to help with those life skills. Is that clear?
Is there a language issue when you're trying to help them with specific things like driver's licenses, etc.?
Yeah, sometimes, but honestly, with most clients, you can usually figure it out with today's translator power.
Google Translator,
it's just, there's, and then we are also available too with live translators on our phones. And so if a volunteer goes out and it just isn't working out, we can call a live translator for them. So.
Karen Lee, who's joining us from Athens, Greece, was wondering if CRIS might need someone to donate a donation storage space.
Maybe in the future we would need that for sure. Right now, we're trying to figure out what we're going to focus on, I guess, for our needs. So there's so many great places in town. There's free clothing stores. That already have that, and so we don't want to double that since we haven't done that before. So we're going to kind of wait and see for a while. When refugees come, we need storage space, because then we could just take furniture and, we do need storage space. But right now with no new arriving refugees, we just don't have the need.
I was going to ask about attorneys. Do you get attorneys to provide services on a volunteer basis, on pro bono basis?
No, we have our attorney staff. On the first day of the month at 8:00, you can call in, and no matter who you are with an immigration question, you can try to book an appointment for that month. That fills up in about 2 hours. Those appointments are $25 and they go across the spectrum. Beyond that, we have our attorneys take clients all the time. They do not go to court, but they help with like changing of statuses. We have spent a lot of our time, including our director, Angie Plummer, 1 day a week, working on family reunifications, having families who were separated through the refugee process be reunified. And that's all kind of stopped, but we have many people that are through the system. We did get to go to the airport 2 days ago because a family that was scheduled to travel, whose travel was canceled, was able to come up with the funds to travel. And so we hope to occasionally see that and have our attorneys. So we're still moving forward on those kind of legal issues. We're spending a lot of time in our legal department with our 4 lawyers and 6 legal aides. We're spending, and then, interns everywhere. We're spending a lot of time helping people apply for different statuses to kind of beef up their safety here in the United States.
If you should get an influx of more funding, would that go to additional attorney staff?
It may. I mean, yeah, that's like not my pay grade, but we have over 60 sources of funding. And so some of them are very protected from what's happening federal, and some of them are kind of USAID shaky ground stuff. And so we also have a full-time grant writer. And for about a year, Angie is focused on trying to give us some, I can't think of the word, but we knew what may be coming. And so we have really tried to broaden our funding, and we'll continue to do so. And then, yeah, great. I would love some funding to come along for citizenship classes, right? We lost that funding, so we lost our citizenship classes. Well, then we could get all kinds of volunteers and all kinds of stuff in the community. So we're always looking for grants for things like that. Any way to make newcomers in Central Ohio stable, secure, and successful. That's our motto, and we want to help support them be successful and stable and integrated here.
Would you recommend, if folks make donations, would you recommend them designating like citizenship, this goes to citizenship class, or just wherever the need is greatest?
I think right now we have the Enduring Welcome campaign. It's right on our front page, crisohio.org. And right now we're actually, because of the lack of funding and because we want to have some money to start new programs, we're kind of pointing everyone to that plan, the Enduring Welcome. And if anybody, I am going to do a little tiny bit of fundraising for that. The mom and her 3 daughters joined a husband who he just came earlier, and they've been waiting. They were all refugees. So he came 7 years ago, and he was reunited on Wednesday or on Tuesday with his wife and three daughters. And I will be doing a little, if anyone's interested in that, you can write me. I'm going to do just a touch of fundraising for them because of the changes. They were supposed to get $1,600 each to help them get started, and they didn't get that from the federal government. So we may try to just a little bit of money to help them get started.
And is that something a small group?
Yes, yes. If someone is interested in doing that, I'm not going to do a big appeal. It's just a very special case, and I'm rarely allowed to individually fundraise, but Angie requested that maybe I could ask a few people for that because it's just a little bit of starter money that all refugees get, and these guys didn't get it because of the ending of the program. So.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Let me just go to the next page. We have so many people. Oh, okay. We have Laurie again.
Yeah. So Teresa, this is something I could probably talk to you about at some time because it might be a complicated question or answer. But I just need to ask, when people are being sent back for policy changes and what's going on right now, is CRIS involved in that?
No, we do not. I mean, I think our lawyers may be involved with some things, but we never do trial law, and we are not, we don't have any grants or funding to work with folks who are undocumented other than through our legal department.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't. Now, as far as advocacy goes, we lost our community advocate, Blaze. He was one of the first to go when this happened. So isn't that heartbreaking?
He was.
So I think Flannery and I are going to try to we won't be able to do a very good job at it, but we'll try to do as best we can and get advocacy out there because we do want to have at least advocacy efforts to fight kind of what's going on. So.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Let me just slip over here. Page 2. Maybe that's all we got. Okay. I think we've got everybody on one page now. And gosh, it's almost 1:30 already. Anything else for the good of the order? This has been just amazing. And I really appreciate all of you joining us, and that we've had so many people in the attendee group. Thank you so much. There may be questions down the road that folks might have if they haven't had a chance to view Breathe Free, free or the virtual tour. Just please go ahead and send them to me, and I will forward them on to Laurie and Tom and Teresa, so that maybe we can get something going a little bit if there's an interest in trying to help in certain ways that we can. Again, thank you so much. Anybody for the last words for the good of the order before we wrap up? Thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate your coming. And at this point, I'm going to turn off the recording, and then I'm going to ask a couple people, Karen Adams and Ann and Mike Kaleko usually help me with have the chat. If there's anything in there, I will add it to the recording when I send it around to everybody that couldn't make it. So thank you so much, all. Appreciate it. Have a
Okay,
good
bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for coming. Bye.